He said it was just an experiment. That's what stuck with me the most, not the way he said it. Not even the fact that he was standing way too close when he did. It was how serious he looked right after. Like he wasn't joking. Like he wasn't even sure himself what he was about to do. And the worst part? I didn't laugh. I should have. Anyone else would have. But I didn't. Because something in me already knew this wasn't just an experiment. I met Ryan at a house party I didn't even want to go to. One of those loud, overcrowded college parties where the music is too heavy, the drinks are too cheap, and everyone's pretending they're having the time of their lives. I was already halfway out the door when my friend dragged me back in, saying I needed to loosen up. That's when I saw him. Ryan wasn't trying like everyone else. He wasn't shouting over the music or doing something stupid for attention. He was just there, leaning against the kitchen counter, drink in hand, watching everything like he was slightly detached from it. Like he didn't belong there either. We made eye contact for maybe a second too long. And that was it. Something shifted. Andrew, right? His voice caught me off guard. Calm, low, confident in a way that didn't feel forced. I turned, realizing he was suddenly right next to me. Yeah, I said a little too quickly. Ryan. He nodded, a faint smirk pulling at the corner of his mouth. You look like you were planning your escape. I let out a short laugh. Was it that obvious? Only if you were actually paying attention, he said. That should have been the end of it. Just another random conversation with a stranger at a party. But we didn't stop talking. We ended up on the balcony, away from the noise. The air was cooler out there, quieter. It felt like stepping into a different world, same party, but muted, distant. Ryan leaned against the railing, looking out at the street below. You don't really like these things, do you? He asked. Not really, I admitted. You? He shrugged. Depends. On what? His eyes flicked to mine. Who I meet. There was a pause after that. Not awkward. Just heavy. We talked about random stuff at first. Classes, work, the usual surface level things. But it didn't stay there for long. Somehow, without either of us pushing it, the conversation started slipping into something more personal. He told me he'd transferred recently, said he needed a change of pace, but didn't go into details. I didn't push. There was something about Ryan that made you feel like you shouldn't push. Not because he'd shut you down, but because you got the sense he'd only tell you things when he chose to. And for some reason, that made me want to listen more carefully. At some point, the music inside got louder. People spilled out onto the balcony, laughing, shouting, ruining the quiet moment we had. Ryan straightened slightly, his shoulder brushing against mine. It was subtle, but I noticed, and I think he knew I noticed. You want to get out of here? He asked. It was so casual, like he was asking if I wanted another drink. But my chest tightened a little. Yeah, I said, before I could overthink it. We didn't go far, just walked a few blocks away from the noise, the sound of the party fading behind us. The streets were mostly empty, lit by those dim orange streetlights that make everything feel slower, quieter. For a while, we didn't talk. It wasn't uncomfortable. If anything, it felt easier. You always this quiet? Ryan finally asked. I glanced at him. Only when I'm thinking. And what are you thinking about? I hesitated, because I wasn't sure how honest I wanted to be. Honestly, I said. He nodded. I'm trying to figure you out. That made him smile. Not a big smile. Just enough to show he found it interesting. And he asked, I don't think you're as straightforward as you act. He let out a quiet huff of amusement. You say that like it's a bad thing. I didn't say that. Another pause. This one felt different. We stopped walking without really deciding to. Standing there under the streetlight, facing each other. Closer than before. Too close for just two guys who had met less than an hour ago. Ryan looked at me for a long second. Not casually. Not like he was just listening. He was studying me. And it made my pulse pick up. You ever try something just to see what it feels like? He asked. The question came out of nowhere. Or maybe it didn't. Maybe everything about this night had been leading to it. I frowned slightly. Like what? He hesitated. And for the first time since I met him, Ryan actually looked unsure. Just for a second. Then he exhaled quietly. Like, doing something you're not supposed to. My stomach tightened. Ryan, I'm serious, he cut in, his voice lower now. Not like, permanently. Just once. Just to know. There it was. That shift again. The same one from earlier, but stronger now. I should have stepped back. Should have laughed it off. Said something to break the tension. But I didn't. I stayed exactly where I was. He took a small step closer. Close enough that I could feel the heat from him now. Close enough that it wasn't ambiguous anymore. It's just an experiment, he said quietly. And then he looked at me. Really looked at me. Too serious. Way too serious for something that was supposed to mean nothing. And that's when I realized. This wasn't going to be simple. Not for him. And definitely not for me. I swallowed, my voice coming out lower than I expected. Then why does it feel like it's not? Ryan didn't answer right away. He just kept looking at me. Like he was deciding something. Like whatever happened next actually mattered. And that was the moment everything started to change. Ryan didn't move away. That was the first thing I noticed. After I basically called him out, he could have stepped back, laughed it off, said I was overthinking it. But he didn't. He stayed right there. Close. Too close. And his eyes didn't leave mine. It doesn't have to mean anything, he said finally. Quiet. Controlled. But there was something underneath it. Something tight. Like he was trying to convince himself more than me. I let out a slow breath. You keep saying that. Because it's true. Is it? That made his jaw tighten slightly. Not in an angry way. More like I'd hit something he didn't want to deal with. It's just curiosity, he said. I nodded slowly. Even though my heart was beating way too fast for something that was supposed to be just curiosity. Right, I muttered. Curiosity. Another pause. Longer this time. The street was dead quiet around us. No cars, no people. Just that dim light above us and the distant echo of the party we'd left behind. It felt like we were completely cut off from everything else. Like this moment existed on its own. Ryan shifted slightly. Not away. Closer. If you're not into it, just say it, he added. And there it was. The out. Clear. Easy. All I had to do was take it. I should have. Seriously, I should have. Because everything about this situation was complicated at best, a complete mess at worst. We barely knew each other. I didn't know what he actually wanted. And the way he was acting like this was casual, but also not. It was messing with my head. But instead of stepping back, I shook my head. I didn't say that. That did something. I saw it immediately. A flicker in his expression. Subtle, but real. Like something inside him shifted the second I said it. You didn't, he repeated quietly. And now his voice sounded different. Lower. I swallowed, suddenly very aware of how close we were. If this is just an experiment, I said slowly, then why are you acting like it matters? That question hit harder. I could tell. Because for a second, Ryan didn't have an answer. And that didn't match the confident, controlled guy I'd been talking to all night. He looked away briefly, ran a hand through his hair, then looked back at me. Because I don't want to screw it up, he admitted. That caught me off guard. Screw it up. Another pause. And this one felt heavier than all the others. This, he said. My chest tightened. Because now it definitely didn't feel like an experiment anymore. Ryan, I started, but I didn't even know what I was going to say. He didn't give me the chance to figure it out. He stepped closer, closing whatever small distance was left between us. If you want me to stop, he said quietly, I will. My brain was screaming at me to think, to slow this down, to make sense of it. But my body wasn't listening anymore. I shook my head again. Don't. That was all it took. Something in his expression softened, but at the same time, there was this intensity underneath it now that hadn't been there before. Like he'd been holding himself back, and just decided to stop. His hand lifted slightly, hovered for a second like he was giving me one last chance to pull away. I didn't. When his fingers finally touched my arm, it wasn't rough. Not hesitant either. Just deliberate. And yeah, I felt it. Immediately. That same electric awareness I'd been trying to ignore all night, only stronger now. My breath caught, just slightly. Ryan noticed. Of course he did. You okay? He asked. I let out a quiet, almost shaky laugh. Yeah, I said. I stopped myself. Because I wasn't sure how to finish that sentence. Just what? Just overwhelmed? Just confused? Just into this way more than I expected? Just not what you expected? He finished for me. I looked at him. Yeah. He nodded slowly. Same. Another pause. But this one felt different. Less tense. More real. And then, his hand slid slightly higher on my arm. Not far, but enough. And this time, I didn't just feel it. I reacted. My body shifted closer without me even thinking about it. Like something in me just gave in. Ryan's eyes dropped for a second. To my lips. Then back up. Still just an experiment? I asked quietly. He didn't answer right away. And honestly, that told me everything. Because when he finally spoke, his voice wasn't as steady as before. I don't know anymore. And that was the exact moment I realized. Whatever this was, it was already way past being simple. And we hadn't even crossed the line yet. There's a moment right before something actually happens where everything kind of pauses, like your brain is giving you one last chance to back out. I felt that moment and ignored it completely. Ryan was still looking at me like he was waiting, not pushing, not rushing, just there, close enough that I could feel his breathing now. Say something, he murmured. I swallowed. About what? A faint smirk flickered across his face. About whether I should stop overthinking this. I huffed out a quiet laugh. That makes two of us. Another pause, but it didn't feel tense anymore. It felt like we were both standing right on the edge of something, and neither of us wanted to pretend otherwise. Ryan tilted his head slightly, studying me again. Have you ever, he started, then stopped himself. Ever what? I asked. He hesitated, and that hesitation said more than the question ever could. I shook my head slightly. No, that was enough. I saw the shift in his expression immediately. Not surprise, not judgment, something else, something softer. Me neither, he admitted. That shouldn't have made my chest tighten the way it did. But it did. So this really is just curiosity, I said quietly. Ryan held my gaze. He corrected. That single word hit harder than anything else he'd said. Because now, it definitely didn't feel like curiosity. It felt intentional. He stepped in closer again. And this time, there was no space left between us. My heart was going insane at this point. Fast, loud, impossible to ignore. I was pretty sure he could hear it. Still good? He asked softly. I nodded. Didn't trust my voice anymore. Ryan exhaled slowly, like he was steadying himself. And then, he moved. It wasn't rushed. Not hesitant either. Just direct. His hand slid from my arm to my shoulder, fingers pressing slightly like he was grounding himself. Like he needed to feel that I was actually there. I reacted without thinking. My hand caught his wrist. Not to stop him, just to feel him back. That did something. I saw it in his eyes. You're sure? He asked again. I nodded once more. And that was it. The distance that technically didn't exist anymore somehow disappeared completely. When he leaned in, it wasn't dramatic. It wasn't some big, cinematic moment. It was quiet, careful, and somehow that made it hit even harder. The first contact was barely there. Just a brush. Like he was testing it. But the second wasn't. My grip tightened slightly on his wrist as everything in my chest just dropped and spiked at the same time. Yeah, there it was. Not confusion, not curiosity, something real. Ryan exhaled against me, like he hadn't realized he'd been holding his breath. And then he pulled back just enough to look at me. Neither of us said anything. We didn't need to, because whatever this was, we'd already crossed into it. And there was no pretending it was simple anymore. His forehead rested lightly against mine for a second. This wasn't supposed to go like this, he said quietly. I let out a soft, breathless laugh. Then why does it feel like you knew it would? He didn't answer right away, but the way his hand tightened slightly on my shoulder told me enough. I didn't plan it, he said finally. I raised an eyebrow slightly. Not the same thing. That made him huff out a quiet laugh. Yeah, he admitted. Another pause. But this one wasn't uncertain. It was heavy, in a different way, because now we both knew. This wasn't just some random moment anymore. And that's when Ryan did something that completely threw me off. He stepped back. Not far, but enough to break the contact. The sudden absence hit harder than I expected. I frowned slightly. Okay, that feels like a bad sign. Ryan ran a hand through his hair again, pacing half a step before stopping. It's not, he said quickly. He exhaled. I don't want to mess this up by pretending it's nothing. That was not what I expected him to say. At all. So don't, I replied. He looked at me again, more serious than before. That means it's not just an experiment anymore, he said. I held his gaze. Yeah, I said quietly. I figured that out. Another pause. So what is it then, he asked. And that question? That one actually got to me. Because I didn't have a clean answer. All I knew was, I didn't want it to stop. I don't know yet, I admitted. But I don't think either of us is walking away from it like it's nothing. Ryan stared at me for a second, then nodded slowly. Yeah, he said. Me neither. And just like that, this stopped being something temporary and turned into something we were both going to have to figure out. Together, even if neither of us was ready for what that actually meant. We didn't go back to the party. That felt impossible now, like trying to rewind to something that didn't exist anymore. Instead, we kept walking, not really saying anything at first, just moving side by side down the empty street, both of us stuck in our own heads. I kept replaying it. That moment. The way it wasn't awkward. The way it didn't feel like a mistake. And that scared me a little. Because things that feel that natural usually come with consequences. Ryan broke the silence first. So, we're just gonna act normal now? He asked. I glanced at him. Define normal. That made him smirk slightly. Good point. We slowed down as we reached a small park, one of those quiet ones with a couple benches and dim lighting. Without really discussing it, we sat down. There was space between us this time. Not a lot, but enough to notice. Ryan leaned forward, elbows on his knees, hands loosely clasped. Okay, he said. Let's not pretend that didn't just happen. I huffed quietly. Wasn't planning to. Good, he said. Because I don't think I could. I studied him for a second. You seem less chill about it than before. That got a short laugh out of him. Yeah, well, before it was hypothetical. And now? He turned his head slightly toward me. Now it's real. There it was again. That seriousness. The same one from the beginning. Only now it made more sense. You regret it? I asked. Ryan didn't even hesitate. No. The answer came too fast to be fake. Do you? He asked. I shook my head. No. Another pause. Okay, he said quietly. So we're on the same page. Are we? I asked. That made him lean back slightly, looking at me more directly. I don't do things halfway, he said. That caught my attention. What does that mean? It means, he exhaled, like he was choosing his words carefully. If I'm in something, I'm actually in it. My chest tightened a little. Ryan, I said slowly, we met like 2 hours ago. I know. And you're already talking like this is something serious. He held my gaze. Does it feel casual to you? I opened my mouth to answer, then stopped. Because no, it didn't. And that was the problem. I looked away for a second, running a hand through my hair. Yeah, I admitted. That's the part that's messing with me. Ryan nodded slightly. Same. Silence settled again. But it wasn't empty. It was heavy with everything we weren't fully saying. You've never? I started. He shook his head before I could finish. No, not even close. He let out a quiet breath. No, you. I shook my head too. That realization hit differently now. Because this wasn't just some random moment. This was both of us stepping into something completely new. At the same time. No pressure then, I muttered. Ryan laughed softly. Yeah, none at all. I glanced at him again. You sure you're okay with that? With what? This not being simple. He didn't answer right away. Just looked at me. Then, he shifted closer. Not all the way, but enough to erase that space between us again. I wouldn't still be here if I wasn't, he said quietly. That did something to me. Something steady. Because he wasn't avoiding it. He wasn't pretending. He was choosing it. And somehow, that made it harder to walk away than anything else. My shoulder brushed against his. This time, neither of us moved away. So what now? I asked. Ryan glanced down for a second, then back at me. Now, he said slowly, we stop pretending this is just an experiment. My pulse picked up again. And what do we call it instead? I asked. He held my gaze. I don't know yet, he admitted. But I think we figure it out. Together? I asked quietly. A small smile appeared on his face. Not teasing. Just real. Yeah, he said. Together. And that should have made things feel clearer. But instead, it made everything feel way more real. Because now it wasn't just about what happened. It was about what we were going to do next. And neither of us had any idea how far this was about to go. We didn't rush anything after that. And honestly, that might have been the most intense part. Because once you admit something is real, every small thing starts to matter more. We were still sitting on that bench. Closed now. Not touching fully, but enough that I could feel the warmth from him again. Ryan leaned back slightly, one arm resting along the back of the bench behind me. Not quite around me, but close enough that it felt intentional. You thinking too much again? He asked. I let out a quiet breath. Yeah. He nodded like he expected that. What about? I hesitated, then decided there was no point holding back now. This feels fast, I said. Ryan didn't interrupt, just listened. And I don't usually do things like this, I added. A small smirk tugged at his lips. I noticed. I rolled my eyes slightly. Not helping. He chuckled under his breath. Okay, fair. There was a pause. Then, his tone shifted. But you're still here, he pointed out. That landed. Yeah, I admitted. Which means, he pressed. I glanced at him. And yeah, he was watching me closely again. Like he actually cared about the answer. It means I don't want to leave, I said. That was the most honest thing I'd said all night. Ryan didn't respond right away. But I saw it again. That same subtle shift in his expression. Like something about hearing that mattered more than he expected. Good, he said quietly. The word was simple, but the way he said it? Not casual at all. Another pause. Then his hand moved. Slowly. Deliberately. This time, when his fingers brushed mine. It wasn't accidental. And I didn't hesitate. I turned my hand slightly, letting our fingers actually settle together. Yeah, that felt different. More grounded. Less like a moment. And more like a decision. Ryan exhaled quietly. You feel that? He asked. I frowned slightly. Feel what? That this isn't just physical. I looked at him. And for a second, I didn't even know how to respond to that. Because he was right. And that made it way more complicated than either of us probably planned for. Yeah, I said finally. His thumb brushed lightly against my hand. Slow. Absent-minded. But it sent a very intentional reaction through me. Good, he repeated. I let out a quiet breath. You keep saying that. Because I mean it. Another pause. Then, I shifted slightly, turning more toward him. Ryan, I said. He looked at me immediately. What happens when this stops being new? I asked. That question changed something. I saw it. The way his expression tightened just slightly. Why are you already thinking about that? He asked. Because it matters, I said. And yeah, I meant that. Because this, whatever this was, didn't feel like something I could just walk away from without it hitting me later. Ryan studied me for a second. Then he leaned in slightly. Not all the way. Just enough to make sure I was paying attention. I don't start things I don't plan to keep, he said. That hit harder than anything else tonight. Ryan, I said again, quieter now. We don't even know each other. He didn't deny that. But he didn't back off either. Then we fixed that, he replied. Simple. Direct. And somehow, that worked on me more than it should have. I shook my head slightly, a quiet laugh slipping out. This is insane. Yeah, he said. But you're still here. I looked at him again. Really looked at him. And yeah, I still was. Yeah, I admitted. Another pause. Then, without overthinking it this time, I leaned in. Not hesitant. Not testing. Just choosing it. Ryan didn't pull away. Didn't question it. His hand tightened slightly in mine. And then shifted, moving from my hand to my jaw. And yeah, that definitely wasn't casual anymore. This time, when the distance disappeared, it wasn't uncertain. It was intentional. And that changed everything. Because now, we weren't just reacting anymore. We were choosing this. Both of us. And I had a feeling. That choice was about to make things a lot more complicated than either of us was ready for. That second time wasn't hesitant. Not even a little. It felt completely different from before. Like whatever line we'd been dancing around earlier. Yeah, we were way past it now. Ryan's hand stayed on my jaw, steady, firm, but not controlling. Just grounding. And this time, I didn't freeze. Didn't overthink. I leaned into it. That alone changed the energy between us. Because now it wasn't just him leading. It was both of us. I felt the shift immediately. The way his grip tightened just slightly. The way his breathing changed. Andrew, he said quietly, pulling back just enough to look at me. My chest was rising way faster than I wanted it to. Yeah. He studied my face like he was trying to read something. Or maybe confirm something. You're not holding back anymore, he said. I let out a short breath. No, I admitted. That made something in his expression soften again. But at the same time, there was more intensity there now. Good, he said. I huffed quietly. You really need a new word. He smirked slightly. Probably. But he didn't move away. Neither did I. And that was the problem. Or maybe, not a problem. Because once you stop holding back, you don't just go back to pretending nothing's happening. Ryan's hand slid slightly. From my jaw to the side of my neck. Not rough, but definitely more deliberate. And yeah, that reaction? Immediate. I exhaled sharper than I meant to. Ryan noticed. Of course he did. Still okay? He asked again. I nodded. But this time, it came out quicker. Less thought. More instinct. Yeah, I said. I'm good. He held my gaze for another second. Like he was making sure. Really sure. Then he leaned in again. And this time, there was nothing careful about it. It wasn't messy. Not rushed. Just certain. My hand moved without me thinking. Grabbing lightly at his shirt, pulling him closer. That did it. Whatever restraint he had left. Gone. I felt it in the way his hand tightened slightly against my neck. Not enough to hurt. Just enough to make it clear. This wasn't casual anymore. And honestly, I didn't want it to be. When we finally pulled back, it wasn't because we wanted to. It was because we had to breathe. Ryan rested his forehead against mine again, his breathing just as uneven as mine. Okay, he muttered under his breath. I let out a quiet laugh. That doesn't sound convincing. He shook his head slightly. It's not. I pulled back just enough to look at him. Is still an experiment? I asked. That made him pause. Really pause this time. Then he shook his head. No, he said. Simple. Clear. My chest tightened again. Then what is it? I asked. Ryan looked at me like he'd been expecting that question. Something I don't want to screw up, he said. That answer hit harder than anything physical had. Because now, it wasn't just about what we were doing. It was about what it meant. I swallowed. Yeah. We sat there for a second. Still close. Still not fully pulling away. You're staying, right? He asked. I frowned slightly. Staying where? He hesitated. With me, he said. That made my heart spike again. Ryan, I'm not saying anything crazy, he added quickly. Just don't disappear after this. That was the first time he sounded unsure. And that got to me more than anything else. I'm not going anywhere, I said. He searched my face for a second, then nodded slowly. Okay. Another pause. Then he leaned back slightly. But this time, he didn't create distance. His arms slid around me instead, pulling me closer. And I didn't fight it, didn't question it. I just let myself settle into it. Because at that point, there was no point pretending this was simple anymore. And honestly, I wasn't sure I wanted it to be. We stayed like that longer than we probably should have. Not talking, not moving much, just close. Ryan's arm was still around me, steady, warm, like he didn't plan on letting go anytime soon. And for once, I wasn't overthinking every second of it, which was new. You're quiet again, he murmured. I let out a small breath, just trying to process how we got here. He huffed softly. Yeah, same. I tilted my head slightly, glancing at him. No regrets. He didn't even hesitate this time. No. That answer felt different now. More grounded. Less reactive. Good, I said. He smirked a little. Now you're stealing my word. Yeah, well, it fits. A small silence settled again. But it wasn't heavy anymore. It felt calmer. Like whatever tension had been building all night had finally shifted into something steadier. Ryan adjusted slightly, his arm tightening just a bit around me. Not possessive, just certain. So what happens tomorrow? I asked. That made him pause. Why, he asked. You planning to disappear on me? I rolled my eyes lightly. No, I just mean, do we act like this didn't happen, or we see where it goes, he finished. I nodded. Ryan was quiet for a second, thinking. Then he looked at me again. I meant what I said earlier, he said. About what? Not doing things halfway. That landed again. So you don't want this to just be a one-time thing, I said. He shook his head. No. I studied him for a second, trying to figure out if there was hesitation hiding somewhere. There wasn't. And you're okay with the fact that we don't know what this is yet? I asked. Ryan gave a small shrug. We figure it out. Still sounds simple when you say it like that. It's not simple, he said. Then, after a beat. But that doesn't mean it's wrong. That one hit. Because yeah, that was exactly what I'd been trying to sort out in my head. I let out a quiet breath. Yeah. We sat there for another minute. Then Ryan shifted again, turning slightly toward me. Can I ask you something? He said. Depends, I replied. Is it another experiment question? He smiled faintly. No. I nodded. Okay, go ahead. He hesitated for just a second. Why didn't you walk away? He asked. That question caught me off guard. I frowned slightly. What do you mean? You had every chance to, he said. Back there, even before. I looked away for a second, thinking. Because honestly, I hadn't fully answered that for myself yet. But now that he asked, I kind of had to. I don't know. I admitted it first. Then I exhaled slowly. No, that's not true. I corrected myself. Ryan didn't interrupt. I stayed because it didn't feel like a mistake, I said. The words came out more certain than I expected. And he asked quietly. I glanced back at him. And because I didn't want it to stop. That was the real answer. Ryan held my gaze. And yeah, that did something again. Yeah, he said softly. He didn't add anything else. He didn't need to. Because the way he looked at me, that was enough. After a second, he shifted closer again. Then don't overthink tomorrow, he added. I raised an eyebrow slightly. That's your advice? Yeah, he said. We'll deal with it when it comes. I shook my head, a quiet laugh slipping out. You're way too calm about this. I'm not calm, he said. I blinked slightly. You're not. He shook his head. I just don't want to mess it up by overcomplicating it. That actually made sense. More than I expected. Okay, I said. And for once, I decided to just leave it at that. No overthinking. No trying to predict what this would turn into. Just letting it be what it was. Ryan's hand shifted slightly on my arm, his thumb brushing absent-mindedly again. And yeah, that still got a reaction out of me. Still good, he asked quietly. I smirked faintly. You really like checking that, huh? He shrugged. Just making sure. I looked at him. I'm still here, aren't I? That made him smile. A real one this time. Yeah, he said. And for the first time all night. Everything felt simple. Not because it actually was, but because we both decided. We didn't need all the answers yet. Just each other. And somehow, that was enough. We didn't rush to define it. And looking back, that's probably why it worked. The next morning felt weird. Not awkward. Just different. I woke up with that same heavy awareness in my chest, the kind that hits when something real actually happened, and you're not sure what version of reality you're waking up into. For a second, I wondered if I'd overimagined it. If maybe it was just one of those nights that feels bigger than it actually is. Then I saw my phone. A message. From Ryan. Ryan, you awake? My chest tightened again. Yeah, definitely real. Mia? 3 dots appeared almost instantly. Ryan, good. Thought maybe you'd disappear on me. I smirked slightly. Me. Told you I wouldn't. There was a short pause. Then, Ryan, come grab coffee with me. Simple. No pressure. And that mattered more than anything dramatic he could have said. Me, give me 20. When I got there, he was already waiting outside the cafe. Same calm posture. Same unreadable expression at first. But the second he saw me, it changed. Subtle. But I caught it. Hey, he said. Hey, I replied. For a second, we just stood there. Like we were both figuring out what the new version of this was supposed to look like. Then Ryan stepped a little closer. Not too much. Just enough. You actually came, he said. I raised an eyebrow. You sound surprised. He shook his head slightly. Not surprised. Just making sure. I exhaled a small laugh. Still overthinking? He smirked faintly. Only a little. We went inside. Grabbed coffee. Sat down. And for the first time since all of this started, it felt normal. We talked. About classes. About dumb stuff. About things that had nothing to do with last night. But underneath all of it, there was still something there. Not tension. Not confusion. Just awareness. At some point, Ryan leaned back in his chair, studying me again. What? I asked. He shook his head. Just making sure this still feels right. I held his gaze. It does, I said. That answer came easier than I expected. Ryan nodded slowly. Good, he said. I smiled slightly. There it is again. He laughed under his breath. Yeah, I'm not dropping that word. Another pause. Then, he got a little more serious. I meant what I said, he added. About not doing things halfway. I asked. He nodded. And about not disappearing, he continued. I leaned back slightly. Yeah, I meant that too. We held eye contact for a second longer than usual. And this time, it didn't feel uncertain. It felt settled. Not defined. Not labeled. But real. Ryan reached across the table slightly. Not fully obvious. Just enough that his fingers brushed mine again. And yeah, that still did something. You still think this started as an experiment? I asked quietly. He looked at me. Really looked at me. Then shook his head. No, he said. A small pause. I think I just used that word because it was easier than admitting I wanted it. That hit. Because it was honest. And honestly, I respected that more than anything else. I nodded slowly. Yeah, I said. That makes more sense. Another quiet moment passed. Then Ryan leaned back again, more relaxed now. So, he said. I raised an eyebrow. So. A faint smile appeared on his face. Now we just keep going? I let out a quiet breath. Yeah, I said. Then, after a second, we keep going. And that was it. No dramatic ending. No big declaration. Just two people who started with something they didn't understand and decided not to run from it. And honestly, that felt better than any experiment ever could. Because in the end, it was never just that. Not for him. Not for me. And definitely not anymore.